need you to tell us everything about how you were socialized to view us.
Go watch the rest of that video real quick. I would say what I was taught, and not necessarily by my parents, just by my environment, is that Black people were lucky to be where they were today. That all the problems they faced had nothing to do with systemic racism, and they were kind of just like, oh, they're just poor, that's just how it is. And that, it was a very big, white savior complex thing. We were gracious enough to allow them into our spaces. Kind of as if they didn't necessarily have a right to be there, but they had the privilege to be there. So yeah, let's work on unpacking that. I've unpacked it to an extent. Need to unpack it more.
Well, let's get to unpacking then. Thank you for this little old insight. I would say that you just kind of described a few different things. You described assimilation, the white man's burden, and how a lot of Europeans are conditioned to believe you N-words should be grateful that we civilized y'all. Now, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the white man's burden as a duty formally asserted by white people to manage the affairs of non-white people whom they believe to be less developed. Those N-words better be grateful that we decided to develop them and civilize them, because they still could be over there in Africa living in famine. You know how they believe in America. What she dropped down on them is literally how our people are seen as always already being ungrateful, unappreciative, lazy, and thus resulting to whatever bad thing happens to us is our fault. You can tell that it's so conditioned in the American psyche that the conditioning is conditioned. I think she also might have got into how white people love to use the trick of time. You feel me? When it's talking about Black people's hardships, it's like, hey, the historical things you went through, that's way back far there, you gotta get over it. But when it comes to white people's hardship, being tarred or feathered or being tax representation, we have to always already remember and recognize it happened. The trick of time. Calvin Warren taught me about that one. She also sprinkled a little class reductionism in there too, you feel me? That says, hey, those people over there are poor, it's their fault they don't work hard enough. Never mind the other variables about, education or access or resources. Hey, they poor because it's their fault. See, peep game, the white savior complex is the white man's burden. And because they feel burdened, we should feel grateful because they ain't have to do it for us. That's really how they think about it. Historically speaking, the white man's burden is a poem that came from some dude in Europe in 1865, and that concept was literally used to colonize most of the world, you feel me? Especially when we're talking about the scramble of Africa. Really, we gonna be unpackaging a lot of the stuff she touched on in my online course about identity politics. She also is knocking on that door of respectability politics too. And if you don't know what respectability politics is, it is the attempts by marginalized groups to police their own members and show their social values being continuous and compatible with mainstream values. What she did was get into how those respectability politics are pushed on to the Black community, and then we start to internalize them and police on people in our community, because you better be grateful them white folks did that for you. Education is elevation, enroll in my class today.